So we are going to learn today Daf Chav Ches Amud Aleph, but it's a hemshech from Daf Chav Zayin Amud Beis. So we learned in Daf Chav Zayin Amud Beis that there are three ways of learning the limud concerning Ma'aser Sheni. On what are we permitted to spend the Ma'aser Sheni in Yerushalayim? When we get to Yerushalayim and we want to buy food, what kind of items are we permitted to buy with the money of Ma'aser Sheni? And there is a klal or prat klal, and there's three ways of learning this pasuk. So the first way which we had was that bichlal, that you don't darshan klal or prat klal, you darshan ribui miyot and ribui. Now, if you do darshan when you have pratim and you have a klal before that, if you dash them in a way of ribui miyot and miyot, so then basically ribui means to increase, as the word klal is general, but the ribui means to increase, an extra to extra. So therefore, when you go through the system, if you learn it with a system of ribui miyot and ribui, you will be might very little, because it's mostly ribui, and okay, you might something. So you might something. So therefore, according to that opinion that learns that pasuk, which in a way of ribui miyot and ribui, then you only might mayim v'melach, only salt and water, that you cannot use that to you cannot spend the money of Ma'aser Sheni on that. Then we have the other opinion, which is that you dash in the pasuk in a way of klal or prat or klal. Now, even those who dash in the pasuk klal or prat or klal, whether the klal is over there, that it's ke'ein haprat. In other words, klal prat or klal, you can only include things which are similar to the prat. Has to be a common denominator with the prat, not just to be might one thing or two things. It has to be similar to the prat. So if you learn it in the way of klal or prat or klal, so then more things are excluded from being able to spend the money on those items. So more things are excluded if you learn it in a way of klal or prat or klal, because the pasuk is telling you should spend your money klal wherever you want, then prat. So it's only in a prat. Therefore, the less things which you are able to spend the money. Now, in those who learn the way of klal or prat or klal, there are also two brises, which have two different ways of learning the klal or prat or klal. What is the seder about klal or prat or klal is that you find a common denominator in all the pratim. When you find a common denominator in all the pratim, so then you can include any things which have that common denominator. So just again, by klal or prat or klal, how does the limud work? You find a common denominator between all the pratim, and all those other things which are not mentioned, which have that common denominator, you also include, and you can use that to spend your money on. Now, that we have two brises which have they speak about the common denominator in two different ways. Okay, one in regards to Ma'aser Sheni. So the pasuk says Babokar u'batzoyin b'yayin b'shechar. Then you have the two clauses, one at the beginning, one at the end. So one brisa says that the common denominator is pri ugdule karka. So it's like two conditions. The common denominator has two conditions to be able to be included in the common denominator. And then you have the other brisa, which besides there's pri ugdule karka, but on top of that they add that vlad mivlod esaret, something which was created from the ground. Hashem created the brachas, He created from the ground. So they add there's a third detail to make it a common denominator. Now, the more details you have in the common denominator, the more is excluded. If you have only two details in the common denominator, so then it's a bit more inclusive. If you have three details in the common denominator, so then it's going to be more things will be excluded. Okay. The Gemara says, "What's benayim? What's the machlokes between the two of them?" And the Gemara said, the machlokes originally the Gemara says Amar Abaya. Maybe I'll start saying from Amar Abaya is the end of the third line on Daf Chazayin on base. Amar Abaya says, Dogim Ikibenayu, that the difference is fish. Whether you can buy fish with the money of Masechta. Leman the Amar Primi Vidol Karka, Hani Dogim Vidol Karkin. The person who says that there's only two details in the common denominator, and therefore it's more inclusive. So Hani Dogim Dogim are also considered Gedulei Karka. Why are Dogim considered Gedulei Karka? I'm not exactly sure, but anyway, Dogim are considered Gedulei Karka as well. That's the opinion of the Gemara at this moment in time. And the man the Omar, the one that says Vlad Vlodis Haaretz, the person who says that he adds another detail to the common denominator, it has to be created from the earth. So it has to be created from the earth. So then Dogim was not created because Hashem created from the water. Dogim in Mayim Ivru. So therefore, fish are not included, and you cannot buy fish with the money of Ma'aser Sheni. Now, okay, so this whole answer is based on the premise that fish, which I wasn't able to explain, is considered also part of Gedulei Karka. So the Gemara asks, "Umi Omar Abaya Dogim Gedulei Karka?" You know, is Abaya says that Dogim is considered Gedulei Karka? So Omar, I'm just thinking of a svara. Maybe because water is on top of the earth. So water on top of the earth. Therefore, things that are in water can also be considered Gedulei Karka. Maybe that logic, or maybe some other logic. Whatever it is. So the Gemara is questioning it. The Gemara is questioning that the Rabbi say Dogim Gedulei Karka, and it brings proof that it cannot be considered Gedulei Karka. And what's that? Omar Rabbi said, Ochel Putisa. Putisa is Shtroks. So if you eat the Shtroks, there's many psukim in the Torah which tell you that you're not allowed to eat Shtroks. Now, for each pasuk in the Torah that tells you not allowed to eat, so all these different psukim, for each one of them, you get malchus. So therefore, if you eat a sheretz, you can get a few malchus for that. It's because there's a few lavim on it. There's a few lavim, so you get a few malchus. Okay. So what does the Gemara say? Ochel potisa, some type of watery sheretz. It's in the water. It's a sheretz within the water. Loika arba, you get 4 times malchus. In the mola, if you eat an ant, it's like a chomish. You get 5 times malchus. Why? Because there is generally there's some psukim which speak about sheretz, but then there is another passage which speaks about sheretz haaretz. So the one which speaks about sheretz haaretz, so that means that you can use some of the other psukim as well. You use some of the psukim which refer to Petisa, but then there's also extra psukim which refer to sheretz haaretz. So therefore, for sheretz haaretz, you get extra malchus. So that's again ochel Petisa, which is in the water loika arba, because it's not included in sheretz haaretz. The mola, an ant, which is sheretz haaretz, so you end up having an extra lav, because the pasuk says haaretz, and the Petisa is not included, and then the ant is included. Okay, then the tzira, if it's a tzira, which is an insect which it bites, it has I'm not sure what it is, a wasp or something different, maybe tzira, some other type of, which has but the main thing it's a flying insect, and that flying insect, like a sheish, they get 6 malchus, because there's another passage which speaks about flying insect. Okay, but the relevance to us is now if fish are considered Gedulei Karka, so then when it says sheretz, hasheretz al-aretz, it should include the ones which live in the rivers and the seas. So the fact that you don't for the shrotzim which live in the waters, you cannot get malchus, which is based on the pasuk of sheretz hasheretz al-aretz. So you see that those who live in the water, the creatures who live in the water, are not considered Gedulei Karka. If we'll say like that what fish is considered Gedulei Karka, but this and Aminil Kim Sheretz HaSheretz La'aretz. So the petitioner also get malchus from the Sheretz HaSheretz La'aretz. The Kitzer. So we have disproved that it cannot be that Abaya said that fish are considered geduli karka. So that means that even according to those who learn the cloud of Pratik cloud, with only two conditions to it to be included in the cloud of Pratik cloud, the only two conditions, they also exclude fish. The only ones who say prima geduli karka, they also exclude fish. And those have the other condition that it's lodas oretz. Okay, for sure it's exclusive, but even the other ones. So that cannot be the difference between if you have the two conditions or you have the three conditions to it. To be Ravina, there's birds. So birds, they do birds, they fly in the air, but they also they're also considered on the ground. That's why, for instance, by the posuk of Sheretz HaShoretz Haaretz will include even the flying insects, because the flying insects have one more. They have one more because it's the Sheretz HaOif. But it also gets, when you eat the tzira, you get malchus also for the fact that it's a Sheretz HaOretz as well. And you get an extra one in addition to that because it's a Sheretz HaOif. So therefore, even so, those flying things, they also use the ground, and they eat from the ground, they walk on the ground, etc. So as well. So therefore, oifus, if the person says geduli karka, oifus are considered geduli karka. That's an insight. The man on a pre geduli karka, haninam geduli karka. The one that says that the common denominator is pre geduli karka. So it's the oifus are also geduli karka. So therefore, you can buy some chicken with the money of the Masechta, or some doves or whatever. Yeah. But the one says you also have another condition that it has to be created from the earth. That Hashem created from the earth. These birds, a mixture of water and earth, because they weren't created from the earth. Therefore, they weren't created from the earth. So therefore, So therefore, the one created from the earth. So therefore, they're not included, because it's only those which the Sheis Mebreshas that were created from the earth. Those are the ones which you can spend your money, in it, but not on the oifus. So the Gemara says, the Gemara wants to understand. So we have two ways of learning the cloud of cloud. One is to be more inclusive, and one is to be less inclusive. Yeah. So how? Because both of them follow. I'm assuming both of them follow the cloud of prat. The cloud is ke'ena prat, but in the ke'ena prat it can be more inclusive or less inclusive. So which one should you take? So the Gemara wants to understand what's the reasoning of the machlokes. Why does one person learn the cloud of prat in such a way? Why does the other person learn the cloud of prat to be less inclusive? Why one to be more inclusive? The oifus my time, is my time. So what's the reason the person who includes oifus is more inclusive, and what's the reason the person is less inclusive? The Gemara says this. So the one who's marba oifus, he says that you can be more inclusive. Why? Because kasava klol basra dafke. That when you have a klal pratik klal, so really, if you break it down, so you can use to break down the klal pratik klal. We can look at it. The way to look at it is that you have a klal prat and you have a pratik klal. So you have two things. You have a klal prat, and then you have a pratik klal, because it's the same prat. You have klal pratik klal. So you have both klal prat and so you have a klal. So the system of how to judge a klal pratik klal is look at it by the fact that the klal prat is a klal pratik klal is a klal prat, and it's also a pratik klal. Now, what is it primarily? Is the main thing the pratik klal, or is the main thing the klal prat? And of course, they both klalim will have an influence. But what is the primary influencer here? The last klal or the first klal? In other words, should you look at it as a pratik klal, and then okay, but there's also a first klal, or should you look at it as a klal prat, and also there's a second klal. So he says the first one, the one is more inclusive. He says klal basra dafke. The main thing is the first klal. So therefore, prat to klal, last klal, moisav prat. So if you have only a prat in the klal, you have only a prat in the klal, so the klal is moisav on the prat. So it's much more. So that because you have a prat and then a klal, you add much more, because the klal, the system of learning then is to be moisif on the prat. Right. This Rabbi Komili, and you mark everything. That's okay, but but since you have the first cloud, and the first cloud has a prat after it, so you have to minimize a bit. So therefore you minimize, but you minimize a bit. You primarily you look to expand on the prat. You look to expand the prat because cloud prat, prat the cloud is Shabla Komili. Everything's included. So since everything's included, so the first cloud prat, the first old cloud prat, you also take into account. So you exclude a certain amount. You make it but less of an exclusion. So therefore, called the dom the mishnei tzdodim. And the one, so therefore, if it doesn't have the two common denominators, so then if it doesn't have the two common denominators, so then you don't include it. But it's more inclusive. This if you have only two common denominators. The one who is more exclusive, it excludes more things. You cannot use the money for it. Because somebody here holds called a kamadaf. The bemes, you should look at it as a cloud prat. Cloud prat, what's what the Gemara says, but ain't cloud masha prat. If you have only a cloud prat, what's Allah over there? You follow the prat. Ain't the cloud masha prat. If it's a cloud prat, you go only according to the prat. So hani and midachrin alay. So only the prat. Okay. But we have to add on to the prat. You have to take into account the last cloud. And the last cloud is a prat and cloud. No, it's a prat and cloud. So the hani cloud bas, the boy called dominant shlishat. So you add on. So first of all, you look at it as a cloud prat, nothing, only the prat. Then you add a bit on. The kitzur, so therefore it's going to be more things are going to be excluded and less things included. Okay, so that's the two. Even if you follow the system of cloud prat to cloud, which is that means that less is going to be included than the system of riba mir to riba. There's also two opinions where you should draw the line. Should be a bit more inclusive or less inclusive. Okay. He said in the name of Rav. I'll just try and see if I can get hold of the translation of these words. He says, "Ma'arvin b'fafun ubechalagloigos." You can make an error with papuin. Okay, current. It says over here, porcelain. Good godies. Okay, I'm just looking at this art scroll over here. Papuin, it doesn't seem to translate. Porcelain, that must be Chalagluglos is porcelain, and then good godies, that's relevant. That is coriander. That is coriander. So the coriander, the last one, good donios is what's it called? Is coriander. So you can use that to make the error. But not with chazes is green grain, and kfanias, that Rashi explained, that means non-maturing dates, which don't mature. Dates not mature. So you can't use the chazes, which is green grain. Green grain, it's okay. So it means young ears of grain. Actually, Rashi explains that. Young ears of grain, which were harvested while still green, before they were fully grown. So this chazes is we harvested too early, and the grains are still green. And kfanis are the dates which are not ripe. Okay. Now the Gemara asks a question. Well, but gonias, which is the coriander, can you use coriander? But Tanya will learn Gedonios merube bonim yoichlu. Those who have children, lots of children, they should eat. Those who don't have children, should not eat. Why? Because it affects the fertility. So Gedonios affects the fertility. And the imhuksha, that the price continues. The imhuksha zera. If it became hard, this coriander became hard. The coriander became hard, and it has seeds already. So if it already has seeds, then it's even worse. So then those who have children also need, because it's I guess for the health, it's just not good for the health at all. Right. So they shouldn't eat it. So therefore, how can you use it for an Erev? It's not roy lachila. This good gonias. How does the Brisa say How does Rav say you're allowed to eat you're allowed to make an area with good gonias? So the Gemara answers, so you know what? Say that he meant they're talking about the coriander which has not become hard and there's no seeds there yet, and then only some people shouldn't eat it, those who don't have children. So therefore, he's talking about making an area for those people who have children, for those people who have children. So that's one answer. That to Rav, when he said that you can use good gonias, it's only for those people who already have children, and it's talking about the good gonias which are the good gonias which are not so hard yet, and it's only affects some people, not others. If you want, that even you can even use that for an area, this non-hard good gonias, you can use it for an area even for those who don't have children. Why? Because it's fit for other people who have children. So something which is fit for other people, you can use it. And this principle we see in our Mishnah. Milay did we not see that? In the Tanna Kamma Mishnah. The Tanna Kamma Mishnah says that, not the Simchas argues. You can make an area with wine, even though he can't drink the wine, and the Israel truma, even though the Israel cannot eat the truma. Yes, they're going to eat truma. So almost we see the principle that if you can make an area with food, you can make an area with food as long as it's food, even though the mamash, the person who made the area, cannot actually eat that area. So we see, so you see the principle of the Tanna Kamma that that doesn't matter. So right. So I guess we have two terutzim here. So one would follow even probably Sumchas' opinion, and one would work only if we follow Tanna Kamma's opinion. That's the two terutzim are dependent if you follow the Tanna Kamma or if you follow Sumchas. Okay. Then you have a third teretz. Another teretz is Kikoma Rav. Behind the cookie madoi, which I assume is the chozes, but it's not the chozes. Good gonias, I mean, it's the good gonias, but they are from Modai, and those coriander from Modai, I guess, it's called the hand cooking. It's some whatever. It probably hands over here. Okay. Anyway, so I don't see anything behind the cookie. I didn't see a translation. So, but it's from Modai. So it's from Modai, and so therefore, since it's from Modai, those ones are okay. They're edible and they're fine, and therefore you can use that for an Erev. So you have some specimens of the coriander which you can use for an Erev because they're edible and they're okay and they're not harmful to them. Okay, next item. Chozes. What's chozes? Chozes is this green grain, which, like I said before, has not been ripened and the grain is still green. So we say you can't use that for a what's it called? You can't use that for the air. Chozes loy, you can't use for chozes. Well, Omar Rabbi Huda, Omar Rav, Rabbi Huda's in Rav. Kshus the chozes ma'arvi behem. Kshus is hops. Okay, kshus is hops. So hops and chazes is ma'arvim. You can use it for an erev, and because it's considered food and edible, considered edible. Yeah, so kshus and chazes is considered edible, and they use for erev. And not only that, you make the bracha. If it's not edible, you can only make shahakal on it. You can't make, or if it's worse, you can't even make a shahakal on it. Yeah, but I call upon him. You can make a proper bracha ber piyadama. So you can see that the name of Rav, it's edible. So Rav himself, you say Rav said it's not edible, it can't be therefore it can't be used for the Erev who sees it as edible. So it says the boss also Rav before he came to Babel and after he came to Babel. So I guess so in Israel it was this unedible, nobody ate that stuff. These green grains, nobody ate. But when he came to Babel, he saw, people eating them. So people eating them, so he changed the halacha. So the Gemara says, what? Babel have a rov the alma? You should go according to Reiv Olam. Bubble is not. It's not the right. So therefore, since the majority of people, everybody has grains. There's grains growing all over the place. Not just in bubble. Every grain. And before it's green, before it gets ripe, it's green. Nobody eats them. So bubble has some. I don't know. There's some extreme people there have an extreme diet or whatever it is, and they do eat this. So how can you pass halacha, change halacha because of bubble? Bubble should follow what the rest of the world. We should say maybe bottle diet, it's a kolodum or something. We should say that's what it seems from places. Anyway, what Tanya we learned, we see the cloud of bottle diet, it's a kolodum. We see that cloud. What Tanya learned, hapul beans or something. Some type of bean, yeah. Hapul the hasoir and the barley, the hatilson. Shezoron the yerek, if he planted it with if he planted it for to be a yerek, his intention was okay, I can't even read the word which says tilson, wherever that is. So that he planted for yerek. So if he planted to eat it as it's green and not the seeds, so he planted green, but the diet is a kolodam. So bottle diet is a kolodam. So if therefore zoron chayev the yarkam potter. So therefore, if they grew a bit more. Even though I grew it to be eaten as green when it's still green, but if it developed, it had seeds, then I'm chai b'maiser. If they're still green, you're potter for maiser. So what do you see? The principle of bottle diet is a kolodam. So we should apply that also to the people of Babel. Yeah. And hashachlayim v'hagarge shezoron liyerek. If you planted them for vegetables, I guess that also again you have the seeds and you have it when it's green. So then if you planted it to be green, misasrin yerek b'zera. So then you take meiser both if you use it when it's green and then when the seeds come out. The zora and the zera, even if you planted it for zera, misasrin you take meiser zera b'yerek. Both Zerek and also from Yerek, because this is multi-use, and therefore you either situation, whichever way you use it, you're going to take Meiser. Okay, because of Advarim, we see the principle, but the diets of Kol Adam. So how does it change halacha when we get both? So he says, the kids of the answer is going to be that was a different type. Ki kamarav, but gunaisa, right. Talking about the nice. That's it grows in the green stuff which grows in the garden, in the garden, vegetable garden. So whatever it is, it seems that the growing the vegetable garden it's more edible. I guess it's taken care of. It's not growing in the big huge farms. It's growing in the vegetable garden, so it's a bit softer. Who knows? It's a much because so the kids it's in that type, and therefore it's more edible. And that answers.